Mr. Buffett, how can I make $30 billion?
Start young. Charlie's always said that the big thing about it is we started building this little snowball on top of a very long hill. So we started at a very early age in rolling the snowball down. And of course, the snowball, the nature of compound interest is it behaves like a snowball of sticky snow. And the trick is to have a very long hill, which means either starting very young or living to be very old. I would do it exactly the same way if I were doing it in the investment world. I mean, if I were getting out of school today and I had $10,000 to invest, I'd start with the A's. I would start going right through companies, and I probably would focus on smaller companies because I would be working with smaller sums, and there's more chance that something is overlooked in that arena. And as Charlie has said earlier, it won't be like doing that in 1951 when you could leaf through and find all kinds of things that just leapt off the page at you. But that's the only way to do it. I mean, you have to buy businesses.
But the second most important thing, and equally as important, is in terms of the habits that you develop, in terms of what you do with yourself. When we hire people, we look for three qualities. We look for integrity, we look for intelligence, and we look for energy. But if they don't have the first one, integrity, the other two will kill you. Because if you're hiring somebody without integrity, you really want them to be dumb and lazy, don't you? I mean, last thing in the world you want for them is to be smart and energetic. So smart and energetic only goes with integrity. I would say, avoid credit cards. Just forget about them. We're in various businesses that issue credit cards. The American public loves credit cards. But if you start revolving debt on credit cards, you're going to be paying 18 or 20%. And you can't make progress in your financial life going around borrowing money at 18 or 20%. You can make a lot of money by lending it out at 18 or 20% over time. If you can find anybody that's good that will borrow from you. But you don't want to be on the side of the equation that's always behind in life. I was lucky. I'd saved about $10,000 by the time I got out of school. That $10,000 was really worth millions I might have earned later on, because after you get a family and everything, the expenses roll in. But those were my tools to work with, but it was only because I was ahead of the game. If you're behind the game by $10,000 at some point and paying 18 or 20% interest on it, you will never, you'll never get out of it. So the trick, I've got a partner that says, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. And that's true in financial matters as well. You want to figure out where you don't want to be ahead of time and avoid that. And I get about a dozen letters a day from people who are having terrible problems. And there are two reasons why they have terrible problems. One is a number of them have had health problems of some sort. I mean, they have really been hit by or somebody in their family has been hit by some kind of catastrophic illness. And that is it's a terrible thing to happen to any family. And they run up bills they can't pay. And really only society can solve that one in terms of protecting people against that. That's just plain bad luck. But the other one is from people who run up credit card debt, and they're facing bankruptcy, or they've been through bankruptcy once before, and they owe a whole bunch of money, and they can't even pay the interest, let alone pay any principal. And half of my letters come from people like that, and that problem is avoidable. Catastrophic illness is not, but credit card debt is something you bring on yourself, and it's way better, it's way easier to stay out of trouble than to get out of trouble financially. And I will guarantee you, if you run up big credit card debts, you will be in trouble probably the rest of your life in terms of your financial situation. On the other hand, if you get ahead of the game, even it's on a very modest scale, so that money is coming in from investing, and people owe you money, or equities owe you ownership, you'll be way ahead of the game compared to paying it, always paying your creditors every month. So my advice to you is, if you can't pay for it, don't buy it, and get yourself in a position where you can pay for anything.
Well, if you're interested in business, I definitely think you ought to learn all the accounting you can by the time you're in your early 20s. Accounting is the language of business. Now, that doesn't mean it's a perfect language, so you have to know the limitations of that language as well as all aspects of it. So I would advise you to learn accounting, and I would advise you to be, in terms of part-time employment or anything else, work at a number of businesses. There's nothing like seeing how business operates to build your judgment in the future about businesses. When you understand what kind of things are very competitive and what kind of things are less competitive and why that works that way, all of that adds to your knowledge. So I would do a lot of reading. If you're interested in investments, I would take the accounting courses. I do a lot of reading about investments, and I would get as much business experience. I would talk business with people that are in business to find out what they think makes their operation tick, or where they have problems and why. I just think you just kind of sop it up every place that you can.
The business of being scared, I don't know what you do about that. If you're of that, if you have a temperament that when others are fearful, you're going to get scared yourself. You are not going to make a lot of money in securities over time in all probability. People really, if they didn't look at quotations, but of course the whole world is urging them to look at quotations, and more than that, do something based on changes in quotations. But if you didn't, think how much more rational, we've talked about it before, but think how much more rational investing in a farm is than the way many people buy stocks. If you buy a farm, do you get a quote next week? Do you get a quote next month? If you buy an apartment house, do you get a quote next week or month? No, you look at the apartment house or the farm and you say, I expected it to produce so many bushels of soybeans and corn, and if it does that, it meets my expectations. But they buy a stock and they think if it goes up, it's wonderful, and if it goes down, it's bad. We think just the opposite. When it goes down, we love it because we'll buy more, and if it goes up, it kills us to buy more. And Ben Graham wrote about it. It's been explained. But if you can't get yourself in that mental attitude, you're going to be scared whenever everybody else is scared. And to expect somebody else to tell you when to buy and therefore get your courage back up or something. I could get this fellow's courage up substantially by saying it's a wonderful time to buy. And then a week from now, he'd run into somebody else that tells him the world is coming to an end. And he'd sell. I mean, he's a broker's friend, but he's not going to make a lot of money. Just imagine that you're 16 and I was going to give you a car of your choice today, any car you wanted to pick. But there was one catch attached to it. It was the only car you were going to get in the rest of your life. So you had to make it last there. You can pick out the fanciest one you want, a Maserati, whatever it might be. How would you treat it? Well, of course, you would read the owner's manual about 5 times before you turned the key in the ignition. You'd keep it garaged. Any little rust you would get taken care of immediately. You'd change the oil twice as often as you were supposed to, because it has to last a lifetime. And then I tell the students, and you get one body and one mind, and it's going to have to last you a lifetime, and you better treat it the same way, and you better start treating it right now, because it doesn't do you any good to start worrying about that when you're 50 or 60 and the rust, that little speck of rust, is turned into something big. So anything your students do to invest in their mind and body, particularly your mind. We didn't work too hard on the bodies around here, but it pays off. It pays off in an extraordinary way. Your best asset is your own self. When I get classes in universities, I just ask them to imagine they were going to buy one of their classmates to own 10% up for the rest of their life. Which one would they pick? They wouldn't pick the one with the highest IQ or necessarily the one with the highest grades. They pick the person that's going to be effective. And the reason people are effective is because other people want to work with them. They want to be around them. And other people they don't want to be around. And those are qualities that an individual picks up: being generous, being humorous, being on time, not claiming credit for more than you do, but rather than less than you, helping out other people. All kinds of human qualities that turn other people on, and then there's things that turn on people off. And those are habits, and they're the habits that you pick up when they're the age of your students. The habits they have today will follow them throughout life, so why not have good ones? So that's the only message I would give your students.